The illustrious Jabba bids you welcome. I'm going to regret this.
I'm Pete Mitchell. He's Payton Jones. And this is the Church Planter Podcast, brought to you by Church Planter Magazine. Hey, Church Planter, this is Pete Mitchell.
And this is Payton Jones.
And as you can tell, Peyton's lovely voice is coming in through a cell phone because, well, it doesn't really matter. But good quality podcast. We've been only doing this for near 400 episodes, and we're still doing this.
Yep, still amateurs.
Very, very.
Well, at least one of us.
It's the amateur hour.
Yeah, one of us is an amateur. The other one's quite the professional these days.
Well, that's just the way God made me.
That's right. Top Gun podcast style.
So did you hear that?
I saw you on the Christian Business podcast.
You didn't just see me on it. I co-host it, baby.
Yeah, so tell me about that, man.
Well, Dave Nigri and I have been doing, long story short, Dave came to me years and years ago. He's out of Florida because he needed help with his business. And he'd been on my newsletter list for a couple of years. He'd been reading my stuff. So he hired me to help him with all of his marketing. And when I looked at all of his marketing, I'm like, dude, you're doing everything right. Like, what do you need me for? He goes, I need someone to just do it who I know they know how to do it. So he's like, it's not that I don't know how to do it. I don't have time for it. And I'm like, okay. And he was like literally the easiest client I ever worked with because I didn't have to explain anything to him. Like he understood what worked and what didn't. So when I said, let's do this, he goes, let's do it. Give me the pieces. I'd put them together. And so that started our relationship all those years ago. And he's been in my masterminds. Turns out he's a elder at his church. He goes to a Calvary Chapel, church in Florida. He happens to be an elder there. And so when we started the Church Planter podcast, I was telling the guys in my mastermind group, I'm like, this is something you guys might want to look at, is starting a podcast. So he started something called Contractor Secret Weapon. And because he's in the contracting industry. And so after doing that for several years, he just got tired of doing it, right? It's a lot of work. You wouldn't know this because you don't actually do the work. You just show up and be pretty. And that's awesome, right? And so he stopped it. And so I came to him. I said, hey, you know what? I'm thinking I want to get in the contracting market with marketing. Can I take over the podcast? And he goes, well, how about this? He goes, why don't we do it together? I just don't want to do any of the work. I want to be a Payton Jones. I want to sit there and look pretty. And I'm like, okay, because I got all the systems in place. I know how to do it all. And
let's be honest, you do ugly well.
I do ugly really well. I've got a face for podcasting. You know what I'm saying?
The face and the voice.
And the voice for podcasting. And so he and I started doing that together, and we both were like feeling unfulfilled in doing it. And he wanted to move, like where God's been calling him is helping Christians understand it's okay to be in business. It's okay to make money. If you're good at that, that's what God's called you to. You don't have to all go become a pastor of a church. You have to do what God's called you to. And so he's like, that's really the message I feel like God's placed on my heart. And so I want to do that.
Wait. I hear a soundbite coming on. I make my money the old-fashioned way. I got run over by a Lexus.
Oh, man, I wish we had our soundboard so bad. Yeah. So anyway,
we'll continue. Sorry, I was breaking. He said, I feel like this is what God wants me to do.
Yeah. So, I said, that's fine. Cause I actually, we'd been doing some marketing and some stuff in the contractor field. And I was like, you know what? I don't feel it either. Like, I don't feel like that's where I really want to be focusing my time on. So I'm like, all right, we're going to change it up. So we literally just, after I don't know how many episodes he has, like probably close to 400, and we've been doing Contractor Secret Weapon for 6 months together by this point. We just said, all right, we're going to close down Contractor Secret Weapon, and we're going to start the Thriving Christian Business podcast. And which is kind of funny because the initials are TCB, and so we cannot like get through that without going taking care of business. I mean, just like like
so
the
good.
worst initials ever. And
well, isn't that's who's that guy? Is it Dan Brown? No, Dan something. Where it's like, the 60 days, work for yourself in 60 days, and that's his theme song.
Is it?
Yeah. That's
funny.
Cool, though. That's kind of like having the name Pete Mitchell and being, the marketing maverick. I mean, that was just meant to be.
I cannot wait until the next Top Gun movie comes out and people know what the name Pete Mitchell means again. Because none of these millennials know.
Right.
I mean, that movie came out in 1986. So, for about 30 years, I used to get all the time, oh, Pete Mitchell, like Maverick and Top Gun. I'm like, yeah, I never heard that before. And now that I'm 44, no one remembers.
Kid in school with that name.
Yeah.
If you weren't the coolest kid in school with the name Pete Mitchell growing up in the 80s, you were doing it wrong.
Dude, I was the coolest kid in school. That's all I'm saying.
I can actually kind of believe that. I definitely believe you were the coolest kid in Biola after hearing the stories.
No, definitely wasn't the coolest kid in Biola.
I also know that you were the coolest camp counselor ever at Hume Lake.
That was true. I wasn't at Hume Lake. I wasn't a counselor at Hume Lake.
That is for sure true. Yeah. Okay, whatever Christian camp it was, those stories are epic.
Yeah, that was great. Those were good times, man. Those were really good times. Yeah, so I mean that's what started the old Thriving Christian Business podcast, which, by the way, if you want to get our 9 steps from taking you from where you are to where you want to go in your business, then you need to head on over to tcbsolution.com and you can pick up the 9 steps. And of course, once you do that, I've got a great little video where I take you a little bit deeper through the 9 steps, and I invite you to set up a call with me. tcbsolution.com.
Yeah, baby.
The more you know.
Hey, and one of the things that I get to do, because I'm working with Exponential now, is I get to host another podcast. This is commercial time, but no, not really. But I host a podcast, but I don't get to pick the guests. The guests are limited to the top 100 reproducing churches. But I have a guest for you, Pete. I talked to a guy this week. He is a professor at Asbury University, and he's been working with 2 doctoral students on analyzing John Wesley's business practices for fueling mission and ministry. And oh my gosh, I had the biggest geek out conversation. When I was done, I was like, Pete needs to interview this dude. Like, in fact, we should get him on our, hey, hello. Hey, wait a second. I have this podcast called,
I got an idea. Why don't you and I do a podcast together and we can bring great guests like that on it?
Let's just say that right now I'm coming back. I'm about to hop on my regular computer, but I am building a house, and I'm coming back from Home Depot with a $400 roto hammer, which if you don't feel manly buying a roto hammer that costs $400 and is heavy, you don't know what it is to be a man. And so this is my life right now. It's nuts. So my brain is not firing on all 5 cylinders, man. And I have 8 days, count them, that I've been getting up super early and going to bed super late, working on my textbook, which is in its final drafts. During the day, I work for Exponential, and early morning and night, I have no life. This is what I do. I work in a salt mine called Zondervan, and I mine salt for church planners. And you will be able to partake of such said salt in March 2021. when Church Plantology, the book, comes out. It was going to be Jump School, the book, but they said, no, we're saving that one. That one's special.
I'm only going to refer to it as Jump School, the textbook.
Yes. See, you understand.
I just want to confuse the listeners who have suffered with us for near 400 episodes.
All right. Can you hear me now? Do I sound better?
You do sound better.
Can you hear me now? Oh, good. I just got off the CarCast. I can't hold my phone up to my ear as a responsible podcaster and talk on my phone and drive at the same time. But I can hold my phone up to my ear and podcast at the same time.
See, kids, what you need to know is that even though we've been setting aside the same hour for I don't even know how long, we managed to find something to put in its place that makes it so we're either late or we have to leave early or we have to do it in the car. That's just how we do podcasting.
Yeah, I know.
And by we, I mean Payton.
It's called work.
By we, I mean Payton.
And not only do I have to work, with some of us around here, people have to work. You know,
hey, that's your choice. That's your choice. I choose not to.
Which, if you too don't want to work, tune into the Christian Businessman.
Go to tcbsolution.com and sign up to get my 9-step roadmap, blueprint, whatever you want to call it.
And on top of that, like I said, today, I had everything masterfully engineered where I would not have to leave the house. And my framer, who's it's his last day today, is like, I need this and I need that. So I had to go get my roto hammer, which will save me a couple grand. So I bought a $400 toy.
You know, you could have rented it.
I saved myself about $2,000.
You could have just rented it.
Well, if you rent it, it's freaking $100 a day.
Okay, how many days does he need it? You said he only needed it today. It was his last day.
No. What you don't understand is he only has to do 5 to put posts in. I've got 36 more to do after today.
I have no idea what that
not
means.
Fun, my amigo. It is not going to be fun. It is going to be hard. But I'm gonna be like Popeye. I'm gonna have the biggest freaking forearms, and I'm gonna go around. And next time you see me, I'll be like, gotta live. You know, I'm gonna be like, you ever notice on Popeye how when he's walking around, like
let me just answer your question before you even go any further. No, I don't watch Popeye, so I've never noticed.
You've never seen Popeye?
It's not that I've never seen him. I don't watch him. I saw him when I was a kid, like 1 or 2 episodes, but you know.
What? No, you know what? In fairness, though, because your dad
was a smoker. He had an eye problem. He clearly was on drugs. Do you think that went over in my house?
Chaser.
Oh.
So if you watch those cartoons as an adult now, I kid you not, like the Me Too movement, it's got problems. It's problematic because Bluto is like a total rapist. Like he is totally sexually assaulting all of that. Is the I would be surprised if they can even show that cartoon on TV anymore. It was a product of its time. Definitely not okay by today's standards. Shouldn't have probably been okay by anybody's standards at any time.
Wow.
But I mean, he's a masher. All he's doing is like making the moves on her and squeezing her and kissing her. And, it's not good. It's just not good. So
interesting.
Anyways, so, okay, where are you going? Hold on one sec.
Professional podcasting time, boys and girls, here on the Church Planter Podcast, where family comes first.
Okay, I'm back.
Okay, we're back.
Only professionalism here.
Only.
Did you even know I was gone?
I am so not cutting any of that out.
Oh, please don't. Yeah,
I stopped editing like, I don't know, 100 episodes ago. I'm like, forget it. Let it be.
Nah. What's the point?
Hey, so check this out,
that's
man.
Flavor. That's character.
Check this out. I've been reading up on a new type of diet that I'm sure you've heard about, but it's crazy. I might give it a try for 30 days just to see what it's like.
Yeah?
The carnivore diet.
What's it called? Is it called like, what is it?
The carnivore diet.
Oh, where you just eat meat?
Well, you eat only animal products. Absolutely zero carbs. None.
That sounds completely healthy.
Ironically, the medical doctor that wrote the book on it, like literally wrote the book on it, he like justifies everything in such a way. And there are whole people groups that like that's all they do. They don't eat any vegetables, any carbs at all, and they live just as long as everyone else. And and there's a lot of people who've been living on straight carnivore diet for apparently decades. And in fact, Jordan Peterson,
what the number one.
Did you hear that Jordan Peterson's on it?
Is?
Did you hear that Jordan Peterson's on it?
No.
Yeah, he Jordan Peterson and his daughter both suffer from a lot of chemical issues like depression, anxiety, stuff like that, and they've been on medications their whole life. And when they went on the carnivore diet, both of them were able to come off all their medications, and they have no issues anymore. Is that crazy or what?
Really?
Yeah, he did a podcast with Joe Rogan about it.
Diet's a crazy thing, dude.
Oh, no
it's
kidding,
a completely
right?
Crazy thing.
Yeah.
So the number one contributor to longevity is sleep. Believe it or not.
I do believe that. I have. I've seen a lot of the studies on sleep, and in fact, in Okinawa, which I thought was kind of interesting. Where they've got all these people who live a really long time. All of the centurions, all the people who are over 100 in Okinawa, they all pretty much. Sorry, Payton just jumped on the Zoom call.
Hello, Peter.
Oh, you got to turn off your phone, bro.
I know.
There you go.
Did you hear that echo?
Oh yeah.
Famous movie that's from? Hello, Peter.
That's from A Hook.
Yes.
They all eat red meat. That's the one universal factor for everyone in Okinawa who lives over 100. They're all red meat. No, I'm not.
Oh, but they're probably eating like that Kobe beef that's insanely fat.
Yesterday I watched all of them who are on the carnivore. They go for the fattiest cuts of meat,
man.
But he actually got into it with Joe Rogan, not aggressively, but I mean, like Joe Rogan was asking him questions, and he's like, "Look, people are asking me all the time. They go, should I eat grass-fed beef or should I just get the stuff at the store, the regular, off the rack stuff?" And he goes, "This is what we know." And he goes, let me put this in an MMA term because Joe Rogan is, the commentator for UFC. Yeah. He goes, if grass-fed beef is GSP or Conor McGregor, right, the number one, then the other stuff at the store is the number 3 competitor. He's like, that's all the difference it is. It's not that big of a deal. Sure, if you can get it, if you can afford it, do it. But if you can't, it doesn't matter. Like, that's not the determining. I mean, it's so fascinating because, after a year of having what I refer to as my lifestyle change and changing what I eat, I'm totally captivated by all this stuff because I've seen how what you consume, the difference that it can make in your body, in your mind, in your energy, in everything, right? And that's why I was like, I'm reading all this stuff. I'm like, man, I might give that a whirl for 30 days because I'm almost a carnivore right now on the carnivore diet based on what I eat. Cool. There's basically I have like 1 avocado a day cut up over a couple of meals, and maybe a couple of pieces of Ezekiel bread. And then just depending on if we have broccoli or a sweet potato at night, but that's it. Like, and that would be really easy for me to cut out. So I don't know that I would even feel that much of a difference.
Yeah.
But I'm curious.
Would you would cut vegetables out then?
I almost have them cut out now. The only vegetables I eat is broccoli, maybe a few times a week.
Yeah. Man, I love vegetables. I wouldn't, I don't know if I see any benefit of cutting those out though, Well,
and that's the thing is, I think it comes down to what makes you healthy because each individual body is so different.
Isn't that trippy?
Yeah. So I would say whatever makes you healthy gives you the energy that you need. You feel really good.
I wish marshmallow, like, that marshmallow.
I wish
stuff
all
like
the processed foods was actually healthy.
Yeah, no, you know that. Okay, so you know that comes in a jar. It's like a plastic jar. It's made by Kraft. I don't even know what it's called, but
Mayonnaise?
it's like
Mayonnaise?
no, we can't have mayonnaise in my house because Andrew worked in the supermarket. You know, it's always the mayonnaise jar that breaks in the supermarket on the floor, right?
Of course.
Whenever you come around an aisle, it's mayonnaise. So Andrew's like, that put me off. Cleaning up gallons of mayonnaise put me off mayonnaise for life. But you know, the funny thing is that they call it like puffed or like, I don't know, like it's like God blew a kiss into a marshmallow and it blew up into a plastic jar.
God blew a kiss into a marshmallow.
And it's so bad. But if you give me that and a spoon, a tub of that and a spoon, I'm not responsible for what happens.
There's a line that's never been spoken before in the history of mankind. You're the one that gets to take ownership of being the first to say that line. I just want you to know that. That's actually something to be really proud of.
There's many more in my upcoming book. Let me just say. There's actually not. You know, it's funny. I've written this book. My editor.
Wait. You've got another book coming out?
Yeah, let me talk about it. Let me talk about it. I love talking. It's like how you like to talk about yourself. I love talking about my book. I'm just teasing you. That was a rad joke. Come on, that was funny. So
you made me do a double take. I'm like, man, am I really talking about myself all the time?
Not at all.
I'm trying to make it fun for the listener. I mean, come on.
I couldn't resist. No, not at all. So, but I do want to talk about your Father's Day plans after this. But no, my editor yesterday, it was cool because he's an academic editor. So this whole time I've been afraid to talk to him. And because you gotta mute your personality when you're writing academically, which I did, and which probably was a good thing. But
so you don't talk about the rug, how it brings together the room.
I can't. I mean, I'm sure there's some Easter eggs in there, but he did still say, I had to, reference a lot of your films. He was telling me what it was like to work on it, but he said this is the book I wished I had when I planted. So he planted years ago, and he's leading a large church now up in Michigan. So he's a freelance academic editor, and they hire him on. But man, I can't tell. Like, it was rad. He was like, "Look, it's an honor to work on this book. I think this book's important." So that was cool because he edits like NT Wright stuff, and he's one of their big boys for editing. So I was like, "Hey, this is cool, man." So my book might turn out to be decent because the whole time I've been writing, I'm like, this book sucks, man, which is what authors do.
Well, and readers.
And it may suck.
And readers when they read your book.
Yeah. Well, they may. It's a mixed bag. Anything can happen with this book. This book will not be like my other books. Kind of like Michael Jackson in the Thriller video turns to the girl and says, "I'm not like other boys." This book will not be. He says it. I'm not making that up. He says that.
Well, and boy, wasn't he telling the truth in that statement.
Hey, I saw the documentary.
I don't watch that kind of thing, Payton. I'm better than that.
We did pray that we wouldn't say stupid things on this podcast. Apparently, my prayers aren't working today.
Well, that was your prayer. Maybe.
What are you going to do for Father's Day?
Nothing. I don't know what. What am I going to do?
It's your day, man. It's your day to be like, all right, family. What would make
you got to understand?
Happy?
My wife's birthday was just the other day, so I can't do really nothing on her birthday. Then be like, "Hey, it's Father's Day. Let's do some fun stuff." It's not gonna work.
Played that wrong for sure. No, probably. You definitely needed to play that differently. You needed to spoil her, so when the day came, you're like, right, everybody.
But the thing is, we couldn't go anywhere. We couldn't do anything. It wasn't it wasn't my fault. It wasn't my fault. It's the COVID.
That's
it's the COVID.
That's true. Same with my birthday. Nothing. It was at first, we were going to go to Star Wars Disney. That was the plan all year. Then that didn't happen. So then I'm like, well, let's go to the nerd store. There's this nerd hobby store. Nobody ever wants to go there except for Liberty. She's kind of into nerd stuff a little bit.
She's the only cool person in your house.
Exactly. Thank you. See, they call it the nerd store. It's the cool store. And then because no one wanted to go there, well, that was closed. That was my chance. I missed that. Then I settled finally for Barnes & Noble. And we pulled into that parking lot because I like books. Walking around Barnes & Noble is like heaven to me, right? We pull in, that's closed. And I look over at GameStop across the way, and that's closed too. Strike 4, baby.
Nothing is open. I did get notification that the movie theater that I go to is opening on the 10th of July. I got another month to wait.
So that segues perfectly into our topic. What to do with the anger, Pete? What to do?
Since we're running out of time and we should actually, get to the topic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now that I have my roto hammer and, I'm on and we're broadcasting. Notice I let you talk at the whole, that was my trick at the beginning of the podcast, was to just ask you questions, let you talk. That was rad. Because my son was so terrible.
Yeah,
but it was fun though. I should listen more on this podcast because I actually enjoyed what you said.
This is what's funny to me. Okay, you guys, if you listen to the episode a couple of weeks ago, we had a guest on. Payton used to do this to me. Payton and I had another podcast called Hardcore Church Planning. And on said podcast, Payton, like the day before, would be like, "Hey, we're interviewing this guy. He wrote this great book." And I'm like, okay, I've never read the book. I'm not a theologian, clearly. Payton is. I'm not. So he brings this guest on a couple of weeks ago, and I'm like sitting in the background going, what am I doing here? What? This is Hardcore Church Planning all over again, which I quit. I said, I'm out. You do this. Notice how when Pete's gone, the podcast dies because no one's there to do all the work. And I was just like, I had to text Payton. I go, hey, look, man, I love having guests on, but they have to be guests that have nothing to do with the freaking book because you tell me like 30 minutes before and I haven't read it.
I know. Well, in fairness, yeah. There's nothing to say.
There's nothing.
But that was hard to put hardcore down. That was like putting Old Yeller down. I was whimpering the whole time. Now that's something millennials don't know about is Old Yeller. And I tell you not, Disney Plus. I keep looking at it like it is.
Old Yeller is not the kind of movie that you can watch more than once.
I begged it. I can watch that a million times.
No,
the fawns cry.
You can't watch a movie that ends on a sad note. There are a few universal truths. You want to know what's going to make your sci-fi movie fail? If the robot at the end of the movie is tore up and broken as opposed to the robot at the beginning of the movie. It doesn't work. The robot, like R2-D2 and C-3PO have to be cleaned up and be there at the award ceremony or it doesn't work. There's just a few universal truths. You can't kill a dog and then expect people to come back.
See, and that's your kryptonite. We've been friends for 7-8 years now?
I don't know, but it seems like a lot longer than that.
If Pete Mitchell has a soft spot, let me tell you, it's dogs, man.
Dude, I'm a dog guy.
And that's where the old softy in you comes out. I watch you enough. It's also where I think some of your biggest humorous moments come. You send dog memes. Now, our cat memes, I have to say, are not like the dog memes. The dog memes are always something funny or cool about dogs. But every cat meme Pete and I have ever sent to each other usually involves a cat getting crushed in some unfortunate manner with something like, hang in there, kitty.
I texted that to you this last week. The cat.
We have a long history of cat memes. Hang in there, kitty, with the kitty with his head stuck in the garage door.
The cat, half of its body, it's stuck in the top of the garage. Not the bottom, the top of the garage. Just his body hanging down. It says, hang in there, kitty. Dude, did you see the meme that Ruben posted on Facebook? And the guy's like, how pro-gun are you? Everyone should have guns. Even nukes. And it's the dog, and it gets closer and closer and closer. And it's like the dog is smiling, and it's all, especially nukes. I'm like, yes.
That was hilarious. Yes. Oh my gosh, that was funny. Is that dog's face?
Oh, it's perfect. It's perfect.
You know what's funny though is when I saw that dog's face, I picture you, man. Like that's You look nothing like the dog. Don't get me wrong, but it was such your attitude right there. Is like that encapsulated Pete Mitchell right there. That was great.
Oh,
so,
man.
Hey, so seriously though, right? Like, kick us off, man. Let's open this topic.
Let's get down to this week's topic. No, wait. Great Scott. It's time for this week's topic. Let's get down to the nitty-gritty.
All right. Give us some background. Why are we talking about this?
I don't know. You're the one who said, hey, this is what we're going to talk about today.
Okay. So I'll blunder my way through this one. Okay. So today's topic is what to do with the anger. So obviously when everything happened with George Floyd, and if you're here like, hey, we're still talking about this.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, the world's still talking about this. Church planner.
Yep.
All right. Now, I know church planners don't ask that question. Church planners are like, yeah, no, I'm listening. This is great. Now, pastors may ask that question, right? Because if you're listening to this and you're a pastor, you're the whipping boy of this podcast. So if you're asking that question, it's because you haven't been paying attention. You haven't been listening to the community and what the world wants to talk about. And if you know anything about sharing the gospel, you know that you contextualize it based on what other people are talking about. As Pete likes to say as a marketer, you enter the conversation people are already having.
Yep.
So, here we are, and this is the conversation going on around us. Now, what to do with the anger from a few weeks ago, right? Anger is a neutral weapon. It can be used for good, and it can be used for bad. And I think what's happened, you can feel a blog coming on in me because I believe in the use of righteous anger, and I believe that also that anger can quickly turn to unrighteous anger. And I think what we're witnessing right now is both righteous anger and unrighteous anger mixed together. So there's that whole thing in the scripture where it says, in your anger, do not sin. There's also a Psalms, one of the early Psalms where David says, lie on your bed and be angry. And what he's talking about there is like and that's the context of do not sin. In your anger, do not sin. That's the context of that reference. David's pondering something in his bed, and he's angry about something, but he knows that I can't take this to a sinful action or response. There are those that would argue, and I read a book where the guy very effectively argued. Now, listen, I'm not giving validity to the truth itself. As soon as you study logic, you learn that someone can make a really good argument for something that's not true. It can be logical. It can be well supported, well documented, but it may still not be true. But he made a very good case that anger was evil and wrong and should never be tolerated. Now, I don't personally believe that. I don't think he definitively proved it from the scripture. But what I would say is that, that there is a way to deal with the anger that everyone's feeling. And what's happening is there is anger that, like we said, we all felt angry about George Floyd, right? Everybody felt angry about that. But now what's happening is the anger that people initially felt may not be the same anger that people are feeling now. I wonder if now what's starting to happen, what we're witnessing is now anger at people's responses is taking over from the original righteous indignation that happened surrounding George Floyd's death. I just wonder that. I'm not emphatically going to say, but I'm analyzing culture. I'm analyzing people's responses. Pete, what do you think about that?
Well, that's a deep question. Let's face it, much deeper than any question I've ever been asked in all of my life. So, sure.
Well, I mean,
I could see you wanted to type. By the way, you're live on Facebook. They're looking at you right now.
Oh, I know that.
Adam just said hi.
Oh, hey, Adam. How you doing? So I mean, but what are your thoughts, man? What are you feeling right now in these?
There are some people, I don't know if it's a majority or not, right? I have no idea, that I believe are righteously angry. And seeing what they saw with George Floyd, and then The recent shooting, you'll have to forgive me, I don't remember the guy's name. I did a whole podcast on it with Dan Sams. The black guy who was shot at the Wendy's by the cop.
Yeah.
And there is a lot, in some cases, righteous anger because of what they have personally endured over their life. And, I think Will Smith said it best. He said, and I don't know if he actually said it, it was a meme attributed to him. The meme was, racism isn't getting worse, it's getting filmed.
I love that. That is the best quote ever.
And I agree with that.
I do too.
And there are so many people. And here's the thing that really bothers me. And again, I'm looking at my own life. I've had this transition, especially since you and I have done this podcast, not just on race issues, but on every issue. And because I can look back and see where, I felt differently. It is different in different parts of the country. There is more racism in some parts of the country than there is in others. I knew this couple, black and white intermixed couple, and they were in the military, and they loved being stationed in California because it was so much better than, when they'd get stationed in other parts of the country because of what's accepted here as opposed to what's accepted in other parts of the country. So when I see a bunch of white people, and most of the people I know are in California, right? Certainly not all of them, but most of them are. And they're like, oh yeah, but George Floyd was this criminal. And I'm like, well, does that mean his life wasn't worth anything? Like, you're telling me he was a criminal and, he did this
no difference to the argument.
That's the thing. Whatsoever. It doesn't. I don't care what he was made in the image of God.
And period. He was murdered.
And he was murdered. Like, you can watch 8.5 minutes of it, right? I mean,
he was murdered. And even if he was resisting, if he's resisting arrest, you still don't murder him. And this is where the police reform needs to happen. So for me, I kind of feel like you and I are no enemies to revolutions. I mean, shoot, man, like at first with the rioting and the protesting, I was like, yeah, this is great. Like, protesting, good. Even a little bit of rioting, I could see that. A little bit of the people,
well, it depends on what you mean by that. You start stealing other people's property.
Correct.
No, that's not cool. You want to tear up a government building as a libertarian? Go for it. Tear up the government building.
And
burn it to the ground.
The thing. I have to be extremely.
I'm kidding. Here. Don't burn anything to the ground.
No, I have to be extremely careful here because, to a certain degree, there are certain things that a riot can do that sends a message. But anything that hurts people or crosses a line, and this is what I'm saying, is when it crosses a line where it's now doing something that is sinful. This is where I'm saying, be angry, do not sin. And so I don't think that at a certain point we're like, for example, the Boston Tea Harbor, right? Boston Tea Party was what was invoked a few weeks back, where people said, oh, remember this? This is what revolutions do. And I'm not arguing for the for the overthrowing of America at all, right? But you start weighing all these different arguments. And I think what's happening right now is people are really polarizing. It may not even be over George Floyd, right? I think the majority of people agreed on George Floyd. But what's starting to happen now, to me, is that the body of Christ is starting to turn on one another and divide over the secondary issues surrounding the tragedy of George Floyd. And so what do we do with the anger? That's really the question today. What do we do? Because you may be on Facebook and social media and Twitter, and there's just this rage. I've said this for years now, living outside of America and coming back to America. Rage and anger is America's pastime. Moral outrage is what we do best, right? I would say more so than other cultures around the world. Outrage is our thing, in emoting rather than thinking, than giving rational thought to something. Hey, leave Adam alone.
No, it was DJ. He was pointing out that racism is here in California, and I'm like, yeah, no doubt. That wasn't what I was trying to imply, that it's not here. I'm saying it was better here.
Yeah. Oh, no. Racism is definitely.
Yeah, no.
And, racism is a thing. I mean, gosh, man, like you got to be blind. And here's the thing. If you're a white person, and again, we have to be careful, because what I'm seeing right now, there is some racism being turned against white people as well, which, that's a whole nother. And that's where I think even that subject where we're talking about the racism is all around. Like, if I come out of this hating white people, I'm a racist, right? Like, hating any particular people group because of their skin or ethnicity.
You can't be racist if you hate white people, because white people are evil.
Well, and this is what I'm saying, is that's where I think now that some of it is being turned around. Some of the moral outrage and some of this is what I'm saying, is these are secondary issues to the actual killing of George Floyd. And, the issue was black racism, which was there. And does that bring up the other? Is there racism against, like DJ mentioned, everybody? Yes, yeah. There's racism all around. That is, I like to remind people that the very first issue that ever hit the early church was racism. Right. There was the division. I mean, the Bible puts it doesn't come out and say, and there was a racist issue. It says there was a division amongst the Hellenists and the Jews. Why? Racism, right? They didn't like each other. They just didn't like each other. They didn't get along. When I lived in Wales, the Welsh could not stand the English. And on the Ministry Ninja podcast I do with Barry was bringing this up, that this is brought up in him. He's had to really think through his racism as a Welsh person against English people, because they also were a repressed people by the English, and they're still treated as second-class citizens in the UK by the English. Can you hear that generator?
No.
Okay, good, because it's really loud on mine. But and this is where I think that the kingdom of God comes through this. I believe that this is where the anger, as you feel these feelings of anger, you've got to look at them. You've got to start looking at it and analyzing them. There's a quote that I love, and it was by Elizabeth Elliot. She says, "It is God to whom and with whom we travel, and while he is the end of our journey, he is also at every stopping place." By the way, that was my typing. So that let me just say that quote again. It is God to whom and with whom we travel, and while he is the end of our journey, he is also at every stopping place. So all along the way, as we're working through these issues of racism, anger, any emotion you have, you stop and you take it to God. What I'm seeing on Facebook is people are speaking before they're thinking, they're emoting and reacting in rage and anger. And I think there's an awful lot of sin on Facebook and Twitter right now, as it says, in the abundance of words, sin is not absent. Right. That's why for me recently, I've opted to be a little more silent, not because I'm not concerned, but because I'm more concerned about the anger that I feel is now secondary anger about secondary issues, but causing a huge amount of sin rather than the initial responses and reactions that I felt in the beginning.
Yeah. I don't know, man.
Yeah. Well, Pete, while you're spending all this time being angry and trying not to sin.
No, you can't leave it on that note.
Okay.
You can't leave it on that note. No, I'm just, it causes me deep in thought because let me put it like this, because I know you got to go. There is absolutely a race issue nationwide, here in California as well, DJ, right? Not trying to say it's not here in California. Some parts it's going to be more pronounced. And when we're talking specifically about white versus black. But then there are other issues, right? Mexican, Hispanic, Latino, whatever you want to, call the ethnic group versus whichever other one. There's still issues there. Asian. I mean, there truly is a sin issue. Like, that's the underlying thing, is there's a sin issue. And it's, I mean, in some of us, our beliefs are so ingrained, we just have to be okay with stepping back for a minute and just saying, I need to think about this. Kind of like how you said Barry did. Barry was like, all right, I'm going to take a moment and, how do I think towards the English? How do I react towards the English? Because all of us, no matter what ethnicity you are, we all have issues, all of us, and I think we do need to take that time to just stop for a minute and think about it.
And that's kind of what I'm saying, is to allow the Holy Spirit to come in. Maybe right now, how everybody's saying, like, this is the time for listening and not speaking. I think it's okay. I think it's okay for, like, many of us spoke up in the beginning. And I think sometimes not knowing what to say is also okay. If you don't know what to say, it's probably best to be quiet. And I don't see that as silence anymore. At this point, I feel like, okay, there's some complex issues here, and I don't know what to say about all these secondary things.
Right.
So I'm listening, but also what you just brought up, and that is just to listen to the Holy Spirit. That's why I'm saying, like, that quote by Elizabeth Elliot, where God is at every stop along the way. He's not the end of the journey. He's also at every rest stop. You can be inviting him in. And when you feel that anger is there for a reason. We have anger as kind of like a check, right? Anger can serve, like I said, it's a neutral weapon, but God can also use anger. When you have anger, why am I angry? What am I feeling? You can stop and you can analyze that, and you can invite God into that. That's true of any emotion. I remember when I was going through depression, that's what my counselor said. He goes, look, you're going to fight this because you're going to feel like, that's not me. I don't do that. I don't suffer that. I don't go through that. And he goes, that's your personality. That's what you'll do. But he goes, take God with you. It's going to come to you like the tide. Let it take you, ride it out, but take God with you. As it's pulling you out into the ocean again, take God with you into it. And that actually kind of was the beginning of the end. It was situational. It was after my mom died. Everyone around me was dying. It was terrible. And my life was falling apart. But taking God with me, finding him there. And I would just, for all of you out there, you're a church planner, you're a gospel representative, you're a minister of the gospel, you're an ambassador. Be careful, like James says, listen much, be quick to listen, be slow to speak, be slow to become angry. Slow to speak and quick to listen. And then he says, and slow to become angry. It's funny how those two things kind of work towards that goal. So hope that helps you guys. It's okay to be silent at a certain point, right? You don't gotta keep raising your voice the whole time about all this, every other second. Racism, yeah, raise your voice on that. And social injustice, raise your voice on that. But all the other side arguments, for me,
killing and banning the ATF, raise your voice on that.
I think we can choose to, I'm going to be silent on this one because that's not the real issue. And that's what's happened. And my heart for my black brothers too, is that, a lot of the movement and sisters is my wife in the background. Thank you. But it's that I don't want to see the good be hijacked by the bad. I believe we're in one of those places where punctuated equilibrium society will move forward as a result of this. We'll be back here again. This will never be a once for all. We'll be back here again, but let's hope that the damage that was done by those officers, to George Floyd, let's hope that the result of that is that social change that's needed happens.
Right.
You know? So, all right. Well, hey, Pete, while you're so Pete, tell me what you do for bookkeeping needs. There's no way to segue out of that, right? So,
well, I'm so grateful, Payton, that you took on this topic and you asked me, because now I've got to go think. I got to spend some quality time thinking, and that means I don't have time to do my payroll taxes. I don't have time to worry about IRS compliance. I need simplifychurch.com. In fact, I'm going to reach out to Josh Henry at simplifychurch.com and ask for some help from Josh Henry at simplifychurch.com.
Yep, simplifychurch.com. Check him out. They're going to help you with all your bookkeeping needs and all that jazz. That's their tagline. And all that jazz. That's what they say. Isn't it, Pete? Pete helped write that marketing phrase for them, by the way.
You just gave him a tagline. People are going to be like, and all that jazz, right?
All that jazz. Be sure to say that to him when you call him up, telling him Pete and Payton sent you. And actually, no, it's Simplify Your Church. So Simplify Your Church. Thanks for joining us today on our podcast. This has been Payton Jones and Pete Mitchell reminding you, if you want to reach the ones nobody's reaching, you need to go where nobody's going and do what nobody's doing. And by the way, along those lines, I have to say, Andrew and I sat and watched the raddest clip of this gospel preacher lady in the Chaz. And there was a demon-possessed guy come up to her, and she immediately changed tack and said, "Spirit, you have no unclean spirit." And dude went, whoop, and he went and took off. I'm telling you, dude, it was a hardcore. This lady, she was anointed. And
you should have sent that to me.
All right, I saved it on my Facebook video, so I'll send it over to you. It was about maybe 20 minutes in. It was just like, you know how they show long videos. It was tacked on, but I'll send it your way. So, all right, guys, thanks for joining us today. We'll see you next time.
Are you gonna give him the tagline? Do it again. Do the tagline.
I did it.
You did too long. You did too long.
Oh, okay. Well, hey, this has been Payton Jones and Pete Mitchell. Reminding myself, if you want to reach ones nobody's reaching, you need to go where nobody's going, like the Chaz, and do what nobody's doing, like that lady did. See ya.
Thanks for joining us for another weekly episode of the Church Planner Podcast with Pete Mitchell and Payton Jones. We'd love to hear your comments on this episode of the Church Planner Podcast. Visit us online and let us know what you thought at churchplannerpodcast.com. If you subscribe to us via iTunes and have enjoyed the podcast, leave us a positive review. The more positive reviews we receive in iTunes, the more iTunes will promote us to other church planners who would benefit from this show. This podcast is brought to you by the Church Planner Magazine, which is available in the iTunes newsstand or online via churchplannermagazine.com.